Hello, my name's Philippa Waller.
My name is Penelope Waller, and we are two of the directors at 4D Human Being.
And welcome to the 4D Human Being podcast. What's it all about, Pen?
It's all about your personal and professional relationships. It's about your communication skills, how you lead, how you work and build teams, how you are looking after yourself and your well-being, and how you are much more at choice. What do we mean by that?
Well, sometimes we can get a little caught in patterns in life and we can all be a little bit on our automatic pilot. So 4D Human Being is all about helping us get back to choice and being a four-dimensional human being. And your fourth dimension, of course,
is intention. So whether it's about your impact, your leadership style, your team dynamics, whether it's about your well-being, whether it's about your communication or your presentation skills, anything that involves human beings interacting with other human beings, 4D Human Being are here to help.
we're going to take a deep dive and look at some tools, insights, theories that are going to help you go from a 3D human doing to a 4D human being so that you can happen to the world rather than the world simply happening to you.
We're off.
We're in, we're off. Good morning. Guten Morgen. Bon matin. Buona mattina.
You are the multilinguist.
That's all I've got.
I've decided I've got to wear more yellow. That's my learning of the day.
Well, you know, it's the macro and the micro in life, isn't it?
Well, you know what it is, Phil? It was being a redhead as a child. There were certain colours we
Pink.
were told to steer very, very clear of.
Yeah. And now you feel like I'm old.
I'm embracing.
I'm embracing.
Going.
Old enough
I'm
now
going
to make my own rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, is there going to be a super segue, Phil? Come on.
Well,
Can you do it?
Well, unwritten rules that we've all got of how things should be.
Yeah.
And then what happens in teams and families when somebody transgresses. Do you know what came up for me? I was listening to something about, it was a political podcast, and it was talking about, you and I talk a lot about this in leadership, that if you don't have a strong narrative, as much as you think you've got sort of a plan and directions, if you haven't got that story.
Yeah.
And this came up in this political narrative of how really what's driving people is you think it's all these sort of top things of whether these policies should or shouldn't happen, but it's really how people interpret them based on the almost unconscious myths that we're holding. And if we think about that in this podcast, which is the second part of top teams, of really, good, healthy teams, we'll all be holding different narratives and myths of what a good team, how people should behave in this team.
Yeah. The rules. Yeah.
And some of us wouldn't even call them rules. We just go the way that you should be as a team member. We won't even be thinking
or as
of
a
it.
human being,
Or as a human being. And if people transgress those...
I wouldn't, you shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't, because I wouldn't. And then if you transgress those, you're wrong and I'm right, and then we're there.
Yeah, and then we are certainly not in collaboration. And there is your super segue, Phil. I mean, honestly, you always pull it out of the bag. You never let me down.
That was like one of those... Do you remember being in the Brownies? I don't know what the sort of equivalent would be in America. Where, where you have to skip over the trefoils and go, and you end up on this sort of slightly stepping stone, quite long path to get somewhere.
Well, just to say, the Brownies is... I don't know what are they called. What are they called?
I know, because it was in Friends. The cookies.
Yes, the cookies, the birds, the bluebirds.
Bluebirds. Yeah.
In Italy, they're called the ladybirds, the coccinelle. So this is like the step before Girl Guides when you're in your little dress,
but you have to do like rituals, like your
tasks and rituals.
Yes,
and
but
things,
you have to sort of jump over stepping stones to get somewhere. And I think that super segue was slightly like that. But another great example of one of the many, many institutions that are conditioning and shaping us into how we should be in teams.
Dib, 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 dob, 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 Phil.
Always be prepared.
Well, it's also another really good example of the amazingness of you delving into the grey matter of your brain, Phil, and pulling things out. It never ceases to amaze me.
Oh, I love a delve.
I love a delve. So yes, today we are on the second of our episodes around teams being great to work with, and we are going to focus today very much on collaboration. And yeah, thinking really about firstly what that means to us, why we don't just automatically do it,
and why other people don't why are they just good to work with? Let's do a quick sweep on the psychology of this. All of us have got an inner toddler. We're all showing up as adults in the world. Well, some of us more. Some of us are showing up as more adult than others, or some of us have moments of more adult than other. But all of us have got that. Most people have got that inner toddler that cannot understand why other people do not just telepathically know how they need you to be to make their life easier. You know, that constant sort of, the human condition is constantly meeting the world as it is, as opposed to what we'd really hope, as a child, really hope it's this just endless duvet and cookie jar of just everything that we need. And it keeps spiking us, it keeps pushing back. And that dance is really what we're talking to. And to think of it like a dance as opposed to a constant problem. Yeah. That really, all groups are really about people trying to get their needs met in different ways.
Yes. And of course, I mean, one of the biggest challenges with that, Phil, is that, particularly if we haven't, studied or had an interest in psychology at all, of course, it's the first hurdle is understanding that your behaviour in a team, firstly, will also be contributing to the level of collaboration in the team.
Yes, I know. It's hard to believe sometimes, isn't it?
But secondly...
Yes, you are the traffic.
It's other
people! In a traffic jam, as you sit in your car going, all these bloody cars, you are one of them.
And the other thing, of course, is recognising, exactly as you just said, what you bring in to a team and collaboration in terms of your behaviours, choices and beliefs very, very much stems from what you have learned as a very, very tiny child. And of course, we don't often think like that. As you said, it's the water in our goldfish bowl. It's the way we are and the way that we think other people are. So that self-reflection, even though we are talking about the collective, collaboration and teams, that sort of mirror holding up and self-reflection is got to always be your starting point.
There's something about what we are carrying through to teams, and I love that. You see lots of these memes, and it's on Instagram or whatever, and it's sort of true. Your boss is not your mum or dad, and I know that we know that. It's because we would look at that and go, I know that. The prefrontal cortex, the rational brain knows that. The problem is when we get into these relational, emotional dynamics and things go wrong, the prefrontal cortex has gone on holiday, my friend.
Well, let me give you a really good example of this that flashed into my brain this morning as we were preparing for this, which is I remember, and this is me sort of exposing my inner self.
Oh, crikey. Strap in, listeners.
I was a lot younger. It was like right
she's now excusing herself.
Career.
It wasn't last week. She's telling us.
I was on some sort of off-site training program.
Oh crikey! Were there rafts?
Well, there were rafts, but there was also, and this has never happened to me before or since. Thank God, honestly.
Oh God, it's trauma.
Phil, you're going to laugh so much at this. We had to get into groups, and we didn't really understand why we had to do this, but we had to prepare and improvise a sort of pantomime Christmas show. We were professional colleagues, really not.
I just want to mention
in the arena
in finance. I love it. I love it. It's like an episode of The Office.
So we got into these groups, and I realised what I did and why I did it. So I was like, right, okay.
Right. This has got to be.
This is what we're going to do, okay? So I've got these ideas. And then there was a couple of other people in the team who were also quite sort of pushy. And anyway, I sort of slightly got sidelined and someone else's idea took over. And so I just detached.
Yeah, you were like, I'm not going to help this.
From the group. And I realised what it was. I mean, that is not a very healthy collaborative behaviour. But I realised there was two things about it. One was the stakes were very, very high in terms of
shame. Yeah.
Number one.
You're not wrong. Almost the highest they can be, Pen. I mean, I don't.
Almost inevitable.
I mean, nudity in the town square is probably on a level here, isn't it? I mean, to be fair.
That was the first thing. But of course, the second thing, when I sort of looked back on this and reflected, of course, our parents ran an amateur dramatic society, and they were very, very much in charge and did things really, really well. And occasionally they passed the reins to somebody else. And arguably the standard wasn't always as high.
So you'd learned.
I must have learned when there's a show to put on.
Pen.
Grab the reins.
Pen. Well, I'm learning something new about you. So if and when I have a show to put on, I'm definitely handing you that bridle.
It was a fairly torturous group experience.
Pen.
But, looking back, you've got to step into these things.
But actually, what you speak to brilliantly there are the two things that get in the way. One is our fears.
I wasn't Snow White in the end.
I'm surprised they let you be a tree in the woods, to be honest. I mean, it's at that point where you say, fine, step aside, Pen.
Step aside.
You can be the prompt. You can sell tickets. What you're talking to is the fears, the underlying fears of shame or embarrassment, or if we get this wrong, or if this isn't good enough, or if my ideas aren't taken up and I don't have any value, or I'm not all of the human fears that we talk about. And the second thing, of course, are those unconscious patterns that we've absolutely learned that if you don't take the reins of the panto. For anybody who don't, I'm assuming everybody knows what a pantomime is. That is such a British thing, isn't it? That we can't just have fairy tales. We've got to turn them into slightly bawdy, odd, for children, but sort of a bit blue humour.
Yes.
So that our belief is that children don't understand the rude jokes, only the parents do, but the children are in the audience anyway.
And there's usually singing involved, and one of the main things about pantomime is sort of making a fool of yourself.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's bedded in, it's woven into the very format. But
anyway, I can't remember the panto film because I blocked it out of my prefrontal cortex.
Pen. It's very important in trauma work. Sometimes all we need to do is learn to stabilise and not open the box. That's absolutely true. Sometimes it's just too much, and I would suggest panto in the woods was too much.
Oh, let's get back on track.
Yeah, but you're really talking to what can get in the way. What I love about this is when we're in a team, and we also should probably talk about what it's like to enter a team. But we're in a team, and then things get irritating or a bit annoying, and we are looking above the surface, like at the top of the iceberg, going, why can't they just? If they just listened, or why can't they just take? But actually, underneath that iceberg is all of what you've spoken to. All of those embedded patterns, all of those identity beliefs, all of those fears. If this doesn't happen, I will be annihilated. I will be worthless. I won't belong. I mean, it's so, if we go to sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I won't be right, and then I'll be nothing, and nobody will love me. I mean, it's, as much as we, I remember someone saying to me years ago, I just want my people to operate more like machines. I'm like, good luck with that. That we're not. We can't just press buttons and people to act and behave. Like, it's all under the iceberg.
Absolutely. And of course, when we've grown up in a family system, or even if it was a sort of an alternative to a family system, we have learnt patterns in groups and dynamics in relationships and family systems that have helped us both thrive and survive, feel loved and belong, but also forged a sense of who we are. So these are the patterns we've learnt worked for us in group behaviour. So,
that's right.
So there we go. We bring it into the workplace. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just some of those patterns will be brilliant, and some of those patterns might not help collaboration.
There's something about Snow White in the woods, which is now forever going to be my touchstone. Because
not
I think
my finest moment in so many ways.
But a lot to learn from, Pen. Those are the tough moments. We grow, we hope we grow, or we shrivel. What we can learn from that is a really fundamental level, even at the nervous system level. Snow White in the woods, Pen. Is it can be difficult to unpick what can happen when things go wrong in teams. And it can be complex, and we've got a million reasons, and we're justifying, and the rational brain is finding all kinds of reasons or blame or whatever it might be. But actually, at a really fundamental level, we can recognise, have I gone into fight and win, or have I gone into disconnect and screw the lot of you? And if we can recognise that and get ourselves regulated, then we've got a chance of at least staying with what's happening. I mean, we've kind of jumped right in here to the issue. So let's slightly rewind. Let's use Snow White in the woods as our kind of narrative of that's what can go wrong.
Yeah.
Now let's look at, okay, what's going on in teams and what makes it work, and how can we have a mindset and a way of being that means we can actually tangibly understand how to collaborate, not just when we like someone and it's easy, but when it's not.
And just to reiterate why this is so important, which we mentioned on the first of these 3 podcasts on teams, which is, if you think about the workspace generally, or even the home space, you can also think about the Lencioni model that we looked at last time. And we spoke about trust last time, which was at the absolute foundation of high-performing teams. And the second layer up, Lencioni calls it conflict or healthy conflict. You can think of that as collaboration. The way that you're able to be open and operate together and work together, even if that feels challenging, which is sitting on top of the trust. So it's absolutely fundamental to good performance.
Well, the thing about that is it really reminds me of script writing with Monica and Deborah back in the day when we were, back and forth to Hollywood and all very exciting and selling scripts to Fox Searchlight. And the 3 of us collaborated, and Monica was in America, Deborah and I were in the UK. And one of the key pieces with that is we'd known each other a long time. I'd known Deborah particularly for a long time, and we'd been in an improvisation troupe together, her and Tom's, her husband Tom's improvisation troupe. And of course, what it meant was that we were able to offer up ideas, say something, suggest something, push an idea that even if it was totally stupid and ridiculous or idiotic, or they thought of it 3 days before, or it didn't work, or you knew that it would be either received in the spirit of build the improviser mindset, which we'll get to, or it would be met with humour and maybe some sort of fun. But underneath that pen, talking to the Lencioni, was the trust that these people, we really loved each other and we knew that we were good.
Yes.
We respected each other. Like, that was just that trust of the 3 of us are together. No one's going off and working with anyone else because you've come up with a bad idea or a rubbish idea. Like, that is absolutely fundamental. And on top of that layer of trust, we could have that, inverted commas, healthy conflict collaboration, because it almost didn't matter what got put on that.
Yeah.
We'll take 90% rubbish for the 10% of gold, because we trust that the gold will be there.
Yeah.
And we don't mind about the rest of it. And we don't even mind if someone gets annoyed. We don't mind if someone gets irritated that they've been written over with an idea that they really wanted to keep, because of that foundation.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you talk like that, Phil, because when you talk like that, it sort of makes me think, why don't we all just operate like that? Because not only is it more useful in terms of the creativity, but it's just so much more fun. And it, as you were speaking, it made so much sense. And yet it's not always where we will tend to go.
Well, let's offer up one of the main reasons that it doesn't happen is because we do not invest enough in creative relationships. We are so focused on output that we think we can put a bunch of people together, pop them in a meeting, and that they'll, out of that sausage machine will come, the perfect banger.
And we've got 20 minutes and we need to.
We've got 20
something.
minutes. Oh, Bob, I don't think you haven't met Jane.
So
off
true.
You go. And actually, Monica, Deborah and I we had worked so many scripts, so many ideas, over and over, and we'd spent so much time in rooms, we'd spent so much time in improv rehearsals and on stage. That work was there.
Yeah.
And the then producing something was the result of that, not the other way round.
It's so true, Phil. I didn't meet my fellow Snow White cast members before the day itself. And there it is.
And there it is. I mean, seriously. Well, because we used to have it with improv when you did tournaments.
Oh yes.
Because you didn't always know them. And great improvisers, because you've done the work in your own teams, you can go on those kind of global kind of circuits or games or competitions, and you'll all have a lot of fun because you're all playing by the same rules. Every now and then you'd meet a team that wanted to win more than they wanted to play, and you learn very quickly that you can't play with those people in the same way, because it all becomes about being self-protective. It becomes about making sure you get off that stage without someone having literally pushed you off it to get a laugh from the audience. And when you're in that state, you never get the gold. You get the quick gag that they're going for, and then you're just in survival mode. You just want to get off that stage without them. And I've seen it, and
it's
painful to watch. Right?
And it's a really good point, because that kind of muscle, if you like, that you need to work in terms of being really good to play with, really good to work with, it is just that. It is a muscle that needs to be exercised and worked. It's really interesting if I sort of think of that story earlier on in my career. It wasn't I wasn't good to work with, but I had only been used to working with people maybe at university or in my first job ever that I just knew really well. And you really have to work that muscle so that when those moments come where you're thrown into a project team or you're up with a new team, it's not something that you can or can't do. It's not something that you can only do in one context, but it's like a skill that you work and build. Exactly the same as improvising.
Absolutely. And Donald Winnicott, the psychologist, the psychoanalytic psychotherapist as well, one of his phrases that I love is the sign of real mental health in a human being is the ability to play. It's like people think about play as something silly or a nice add-on, but of course what it's really doing is training your ego to be incredibly robust. And if we
adapt
and we go back to improv, because you've worked that muscle so much, it means that when you've got a fellow colleague on stage who says, I think my brother's coming. So sad that he lost his leg in that war and now can't hear anything. And you're like, and of course that
that's who I've got to be.
That's who I've got to be now, and we call it pimping. But the ego's in a healthy enough space where you don't say, "You absolute a-hole."
I'm not doing that. Yeah.
You go, all right, let's play. Let's play. We're gonna. This is gonna be fun. Because if I can't hear you, you've got a problem too. So come on, let's play. But it's playful. Because the trust is there, and you're not playing the power games of because I've thrown this idea in, I've raised myself above you and you're below. It's saying I've put this idea in. Come and meet me here. Yeah. There's no power game in that. It's like let's play. Meet me in the playground.
And it's not that we can't do it. Exactly as you said. We've all learnt these skills when we're young. It's just things then block us in terms of those underlying ego needs, wanting to be safe, wanting not to be shamed, wanting to be right, wanting to be good. All of those things get in the way. But we're often very good at letting go of that as children because we're so invested in the play and the friendships that we'll let go of it. Not always, but often. And we sometimes lose that a bit in adulthood.
Absolutely. And it's such a paradox, of course, because we're actually, when we go through the wall of fire of relieving ourselves from that ego response, of course, we're so much safer. I saw this beautiful video yesterday of this guy teaching teenagers about bullying. And that if you get into the fight, so someone goes, you're ugly, and you go, don't call me ugly. Now we're in the status game. Yeah, you are. Look at your horrible hair. Don't be mean. Or you try and fight back. No, your hair's horrible. No, yours is worse. Like you're in the fight. And he was demonstrating. Bully comes in and says, you're really ugly. And then you say to them, okay, well, we've established that. I think you're really lovely.
Yeah.
And then the bully, well, you're too short. Well, I'm definitely shorter than you. Yeah. What's it like being tall? Do you love it?
Yeah, brilliant.
It was so brilliant, Pen, because it just completely dismantled the game. And of course, our ego grid does the same thing. If you step in with curiosity, you are suddenly so much safer because you're not playing the game of, no, I've got to win or be better or have my idea heard.
And this is why this is our first port of call, I would say, in teamwork and collaboration, which is, I think very often when you know, when leaders or teams, they think about collaboration, they do think about the collective. And of course, there's lots of work to be done there in understanding other people and what drives them and all of those things. And we would always say, start with the self. Start with the self in terms of the ego and what you're bringing into that group. And I think sometimes that I position of collaboration development is quite surprising to some of us, but it's you know, we absolutely love the ego work.
Yeah, and if I go back to the improv, you know, we play some of those games when we're doing teamwork, that if we think about some of those games where, like, for example, you're building a story a word at a time, which really speaks to how an improv scene works. You know, you go in and you make offers and you build and accept. You cannot possibly have built that scene on your own, because those ideas, half of them they came from your partner, not you. Yeah. So it's that genuine curiosity of, I only know what I know, which is great, by the way, wonderful. And it's already limiting in terms of creating something new, because you've only got what you know. And when we can release ourselves from that sort of myth of safety that everything has got to come from what I already know, it's like going, I can't go on holiday there because I don't know it.
Well, exactly, Phil. And it also really speaks to what you think your job is, what you think it is that you're bringing to the role. And I mean, we're sort of slightly going off track here, but we can get caught in, the reason I've got this job, or I've got this promotion, or I lead this team, or whatever it is because I know how to ... And
I know stuff.
And of course, there is a truth to that. But even if you were sort of an empty vessel in terms of the information or knowledge about a particular team, project or product, your skill, your gift is in terms of how you show up and how you collaborate with that team, so that what you bring out of the team and other people collectively. Absolutely. And I think often we perhaps don't give that as much value as we should in terms of
100%.
why we do the jobs we do, why we're valued for what we do. I mean, I know people, I've said this before, who've made careers out of just asking questions and putting nothing in the pot. And whilst it can be a little frustrating for some of us in the room, I mean, what they've added in terms of value is extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, the pathways that they've opened up, and if you can think about this from moving from expert to explorer, it's a really good mindset to adopt. A quick word from us at 4D Human Being. If you're enjoying the show, please do click follow so that you can have the 4D Human Being podcast instantly in your feed. And we'd love it if you liked and reviewed us. Let us know what you think.
Please do think of one or two people that you could share the 4D Human Being podcast with. Somebody who would really benefit from the content you're listening to right now.
Back to the show. And if you think about, imagine playing a game with somebody that imagine you're sort of going back to childhood and you're going to play a game with one of your colleagues. Do you want to play with the person who says, I know how this works. Right, here are the rules. No, you don't do it like that. You do it like this. Or do you want to play with the person who goes, I know. Let's see what will happen. What do you think? What do you think? What if we did this? What? You want to play with that person, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's see. Excited about what you might discover together
100%.
Rather than don't do it like that. I'm telling you how,
Yeah, well, I mean, that really does speak to both the improviser mindset, but also the but and the you can't, and that sort of negative blocking language that can often get in the way. And again, it's not that it's necessarily poorly intended. It's just we've learnt that if we stick to these rules and these boundaries of operating, we feel calmer and safer, and therefore this is how we must operate.
This
together.
is how we must operate.
Everyone else
survival.
is like, this is really boring.
It's so draining. and actually that but I think it does slightly. It's a little bit strong. It's not that it's bullying, but it has a little bit of a flavour of that status grab. Because somebody says, oh, Bob, I know. What about if we turn this on its head and think about it really differently? And what if we don't have, 20 people on this, but there's just two of us, like a kind of tiger team? And Bob goes, yeah, but what's happening in that is the diminishing of that other person's idea. No one's actually offering anything else up, but we get that little status hit by pushing someone else down. It makes us feel like we're higher. We haven't actually moved, but that's the little sneaky ego trick that's going on there. So, we talk about this a lot. If you just watch your butts, you're already going to do an awful lot. I want to talk about difference and silos, because that's one of the other topics. We talked about ego, that improv mindset, and we'll touch on accountability. But difference and silos is a really key one when it comes to collaboration, because of course, it's easier to work with people who just get you.
Yeah.
Or who are similar to you. So much of conflict, so much of team toxicity is really only difference. And when we start seeing that differently, that difference isn't a problem, it's just difference. Again, we go back to the ego grid. Oh, that's interesting, Bob. I would never see it like that. And there's a part of me thinking like, that's never going to work.
You're an idiot.
Bob, you're an idiot. And let me go, well, let me hear some more. Because that is so, my mind goes to that's wrong. So I'm already curious about that, because your mind doesn't go to that's wrong. Your mind goes to that must work.
Yeah, and there's kind of two fundamental things I would say about that in terms of difference. I mean, one is, we are arguably way back in the day, kind of hardwired for familiarity, because, back in the day in our tribe, those that were familiar to us were perhaps safer to be with. So there might be something in terms of that hardwiring. But the second thing I would say, which we mentioned briefly before, is that most of us don't spend the first sort of 20, 30 years of our life reflecting on how other people see the world. We don't often give it much thought, again, unless we've particularly studied it. It's a point of interest. So when we enter, like we said before, when we enter into teams and collaboration, it makes no sense to us that people do not see the world as we see. Yeah. And yet, if you can spend a little time reflecting on that and thinking about the fact that we do see things differently, we literally have different worldviews. Once we've accepted that, like you say, we can see difference in a whole other way, rather than it's wrong and right.
Which actually brings me to, how do we help not just ourselves, but a whole team function much better? When you look at difference, and be that sort of different mindsets, or be that different levels of, you and I have talked about this from living abroad, when you come from a family that is very easy with conflict. So you've got a team member who, for them, disagreeing with something isn't a gentle act. But for them that's normal.
Yeah,
whereas for you,
safe and fine.
And safe, and exactly. And whereas for you, even gently mentioning that something might be is really difficult. If we understand that actually everyone has learnt ways to keep themselves safe, and for that person, being really heard and forceful is how to gain safety, we can then understand, okay, everybody's trying to keep safe. If I can help people stay safe, then we can have conversations about what we disagree about. If I'm attacking people or going off and blaming them or gossiping about them, if I'm reducing safety in the team, we're going in the other direction. If we think about that, the other side of that, trust as the foundation, how can you make people feel more safe in your team, so that you can have that healthy conflict collaboration? Because that's really what it's, when we talk about trust,
totally,
sort of safety is really in that, isn't it? If I know you're not going to annihilate me or publicly humiliate me, we can probably have more of a discussion.
Yes, and of course recognising that if you are a leader of a team, recognising that the people in your team will all have different ways that they feel safe and ways that they operate. I'm sure I've said before, I remember a boss of mine many years ago, we had made a big mistake on a contract, and he just mentioned one thing to me. He just said, I think you need to go and look at that clause. And then I heard him speaking to the marketing director, and it was a full-on woof. But of course, he knew that's what we each needed in order to feel like we could express ourselves safely.
That you had very different emotional sort of calibrations.
Yeah.
So I want to finish on accountability, because you've mentioned that story. Actually, we've done something wrong here. If you are finding that you're looking through looking at life or, operating in your team, and you are always able to justify yourself as right, then you have got blind spots. No question.
Yeah.
And honestly, the more developed we are, personally, the more able we are to own the shadow, to own the parts of ourselves. I know I always want my way. I know I can be a bit forceful. I know that can happen. Let me take a moment. Everybody else pile in. I'm going to sit back for 5 minutes. If you can own it yourself, if you can take accountability, this is not saying you're a terrible person. This is saying, I'm a whole human being with all of these wonderful qualities and some of these more challenging ones sometimes for some people. If you can own it, you're going to do so many things. You're going to make yourself feel safer. You're going to make other people feel safer. You have de-weaponized those things to be used against you because you've named them.
You've popped it on the table yourself.
You've put the weapons on the table. They can't now. Those arrows can't now be pointed at you. It's one of the most wonderful ways, as we talked about, to create trust is say, I know I can be a bit like this. Let me step back for a moment and give you some space or whatever it might be. So that's accountability. It might feel difficult. It might feel like concession. It's the biggest gift you can give yourself and your team.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And both and you know what? I'm also really, really good at this.
Yeah,
we can have both.
We spoke about this a little bit on the trust episode last time, and it's also a really, really good way to encourage collaboration. I mean, if you went to a different team, you crossed over that Rubicon, that silo Rubicon, and you went to another team and you said, look, I'm not quite sure I've done this as well as I could have done, or I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to manage this, or whatever it might be. What are the chances that they are then going to perhaps have a conversation with you and step in, as opposed to if you go over there and say something like, we've completed this and we're happy with it and we're not going to change it. I mean, it's so much more likely.
Don't mention that bit. Don't tell anybody. Yeah, exactly.
So it's hugely important for collaboration. Just on that, in terms of that silo breaking as well, it's a big thing, silo breaking. We speak about it a lot in teams. And I guess the first thing I would say is to cross that Rubicon, but what I mean by that is really invest the time in the relationship building outside of the people that you absolutely have to speak to on a day-to-day basis that you get on really well with. So I know it feels like there's a lot of time spent doing that, but that is going to be your biggest friend when it comes to 100%. Silo breaking.
Think of it like at least once a week, you are going to sit in the canteen and have your sandwich with the person that you like the least. That's the level of investment.
Yeah.
That you're going to walk the floor, you're going to write that email, you're going to appreciate them for the thing. You're not saying you're my favorite person, I love everything about you. You're finding the thing that you can acknowledge. You start investing in that bank, you are going to see the difference in your team, 100%.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to quickly say is that we spoke again about processes last week. So processes can be very useful with collaboration as well. I mean, some teams, they just kind of have a sense of it and they do it. But it might be useful, for example, to have a 30-minute meeting where you are committed to not finding a solution. It's just going to be about ideas. So there's ways of really encouraging it.
Yeah, or 20-minute meeting where you can all air the most annoying things and make it a game.
Yeah.
So invest time in simply strengthening relationships. Definitely reach out, email, walk the floor, make those moments that are not about task. You're simply having an improv rehearsal where you're just building the muscle of collaboration with those other people. Get curious, ask questions, see if you can spend a whole day, see if you can become that colleague that you had. See if actually by the end of the week people aren't saying, I don't know what value Bob brought. If you just ask questions, challenge your belief that you need to know stuff by just asking questions. Yes, what if, that's interesting, and cut the butt.
Yeah. I can see your little doggy's butt behind you, by the way.
Oh, he's completely ripped apart my plant. Yeah, I'm going to... He's not usually allowed in here.
Yes,
so we're going to leave you... So we're going to leave you with that. Enjoy building that trust. Use it, do it like an experiment.
Yeah. Exactly.
Build those relationships and collaboration, not even with a goal in mind. You haven't even started writing your Hollywood script yet. You're just building your writing team.
Exactly. And if I had all these tips and tools 30
years
years ago, Phil, I would have been Snow White without a question.
Life could have turned out very different, Pen.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 4D Human Being podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Do take on board some of the insights, tools and tips, because every time that you try something new to get back to choice, you are making a vote for the you that you want to become. And I love that phrase, Pen.
I do too. And please do share this episode with somebody that you know would really benefit from the lessons and learnings we've been chatting about today.
And of course, if you're interested in more from 4D Human Being, do get in touch. We run workshops, trainings, online, in person, conference events and keynotes. We've got the 4D On Demand platform for your whole organisation. And we do have a free Essentials membership where anybody can sign up for absolutely free to access some of our insights, tools and tips. So do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We cannot wait to hear from you and to carry on the conversation.